Prince Louis, just 6 years old, wandered away from his nanny during a family gathering at Clarence House. When security found him, the young prince was standing in a restricted corridor, pointing at a doorway that wasn't supposed to exist. The royal guard stationed there was visibly shaking, caught between orders to keep everyone away and a child's innocent curiosity about what lay behind the hidden entrance. What Louis had stumbled upon was Queen Camilla's secret room, a space that contained evidence of activities so shocking that its discovery would trigger an immediate investigation and expose secrets that could destroy her position in the royal family forever. The afternoon had started innocently enough at Clarence House, with King Charles hosting an informal family gathering to celebrate his grandson Louis's 6th birthday. The event was deliberately low-key, just immediate family and a few close staff members, designed to give the young prince a chance to enjoy time with his grandfather away from the formality of state occasions. Prince William and Catherine had brought all 3 children, with George and Charlotte behaving impeccably as they had been trained to do, while Louis exhibited the energetic curiosity typical of a 6-year-old boy who found sitting still nearly impossible. Sarah Matthews had been Louis's nanny for 2 years, long enough to understand his tendency to wander when something caught his interest. She had been watching him carefully during the birthday tea, but a brief conversation with Catherine about the next day's schedule caused her to lose sight of the boy for perhaps 90 seconds. When she turned back to where Louis had been playing with his toy cars, he was gone. Sarah felt her stomach drop as she quickly scanned the room. Not seeing the distinctive mop of brown hair that should have been immediately visible, she alerted William immediately, keeping her voice low to avoid causing alarm among the other guests. William's expression tightened with concern as he stood and began moving through the various rooms of Clarence House, calling Louis's name in a tone that was stern enough to compel a response, but not so alarmed as to frighten the child if he was simply playing hide-and-seek. Catherine joined the search, moving through the formal sitting rooms and checking behind furniture where a small boy might conceal himself. The security team at Clarence House was notified within minutes that Prince Louis was unaccounted for. This triggered immediate protocols, with guards stationed at all exterior doors to prevent the child from wandering outside, and internal security personnel beginning a systematic sweep of the building. Robert Walsh, a royal protection officer, with 12 years of experience, was stationed in one of the restricted corridors on the 2nd floor, an area where family members rarely ventured because it contained primarily storage rooms and staff facilities. Robert heard the radio communication about Louis being missing and remained at his post while staying alert for any sign of the child. About 5 minutes after the alert went out, he heard small footsteps coming up the service staircase that led to his corridor. He tensed, preparing to intercept whoever was approaching this restricted area, when Prince Louis's small figure emerged at the top of the stairs. Looking around with the wide-eyed curiosity of a child exploring new territory, Robert felt relief, mixed with apprehension about what the boy was doing in this part of the house. Louis noticed Robert immediately and smiled. He's not frightened by the guard's presence, but rather seeming pleased to have found another person in his exploration. The child walked toward Robert with the unself-conscious confidence of someone who had never encountered a situation where he wasn't welcome. Robert was about to gently redirect Louis back toward the main areas of the house when the boy stopped abruptly, attention caught by something beyond where Robert stood. The guard followed Louis's gaze and felt his blood run cold. The child was staring at a section of wall paneling that Robert had been specifically instructed to monitor and protect. To the casual observer, it appeared to be nothing more than decorative wood paneling matching the rest of the corridor. But Robert knew that behind that paneling was a concealed door leading to a private room that Queen Camilla used for purposes she had insisted must remain absolutely confidential. Robert had been given explicit orders that no one, absolutely no one, was to be allowed near this door, and that he was to deny its existence if anyone asked about it. Louis pointed at the wall panel and asked Robert what was behind there, with the straightforward curiosity of a child who expected honest answers to honest questions. Robert felt sweat beginning to form on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the corridor. His orders had been clear, but those orders hadn't contemplated a scenario where a 6-year-old prince would directly question him about the hidden entrance. How did one lie to a member of the royal family, especially a child, while still following instructions to maintain secrecy. The guard attempted to redirect Louis's attention, suggesting they should return to the birthday party where everyone was looking for him. But Louis, exhibiting the stubborn streak his parents knew well, insisted on understanding what was behind the wall panel. The child had noticed a slight gap in the paneling where the hidden door's edge didn't quite align perfectly. His young eyes had picked up on this imperfection that adults might have overlooked. Louis stated matter-of-factly that there was a door there and asked why it was hidden. Robert felt himself beginning to tremble, a physical manifestation of the impossible position he found himself in. On one hand, his orders from Queen Camilla had been unambiguous and delivered with stern insistence that the room's existence and contents were not to be revealed to anyone in the family. On the other hand, he was now facing direct questions from a prince of the blood, albeit a very young one. And lying to royalty violated every instinct of service and duty that Robert had developed over his career. The trembling in his hands intensified as these conflicting loyalties warred within him. Louis noticed the guard's physical distress and asked with innocent concern if Robert was cold or sick. The child's genuine worry for the guard's well-being added another layer of emotional complexity to an already impossible situation. Robert stammered something about being fine, but his visible trembling contradicted his words. He tried once more to guide Louis away from the hidden door, but the boy had become fixated on the mystery, asking repeatedly what was inside and why it was secret. The situation was resolved when Sarah Matthews appeared at the far end of the corridor, having traced Louis's path through the service stairs. She called out with obvious relief, hurrying toward them while scolding Louis gently for wandering off. Robert felt immense gratitude for her arrival, but his relief was short-lived when Louis immediately told his nanny about the hidden door and the trembling guard. Sarah looked at Robert questioningly, clearly confused about what the child was talking about. Robert found himself in an even worse position. Now he had to maintain the fiction of the door's non-existence in front of both the child and the nanny, both of whom were staring at the wall panel with curiosity. He insisted, with a forced calm he didn't feel, that it was just decorative paneling and that Louis's imagination was creating mysteries where none existed. But his trembling hands and the sweat visible on his face undermined the credibility of his assurances. Sarah was experienced enough with children to know when they were making things up versus when they were describing something they genuinely perceived. Louis's insistence that he could see a gap in the paneling, and that there was definitely a door there, had the ring of truth rather than fantasy. She approached the wall section Louis had indicated and ran her hand along the paneling, feeling for the gap the child had described. Her fingers found the slight inconsistency in the wood where the hidden door's edge met the wall panel. Nanny looked at Robert with an expression that mixed confusion with growing suspicion. She asked directly what was behind this door and why there was a concealed entrance in this corridor. Robert's training told him to maintain the cover story, to insist there was nothing unusual about the paneling, but his physical state betrayed him. The trembling had spread from his hands to his entire body, visible shaking that indicated extreme stress. Sarah took a step back, instinctively positioning herself between Louis and whatever was causing the guard such obvious distress. Louis, meanwhile, had decided he wanted to see inside the hidden room and reached toward the wall panel, trying to find a way to open it. Robert moved to gently intercept the child, but his action of protecting the door's concealment only confirmed to Sarah that there was indeed something significant being hidden. She told Louis firmly to step back and asked Robert again what was going on, this time with an authority in her voice that demanded a real answer rather than deflection. Before Robert could formulate a response, Prince William's voice called out from the stairwell. He had been following Sarah's path in the search for Louis and was approaching their location. Robert's trembling intensified to the point where he had to lean against the wall for support. The arrival of Prince William meant this situation was about to escalate far beyond what Robert had authority to handle. His orders had been to keep the door's existence secret. But those orders were about to collide with the direct authority of the future king, who would certainly demand explanations for why his son and the child's nanny were involved in some kind of tense confrontation with a visibly distressed guard. William emerged into the corridor and immediately assessed the scene, his son pointing at a wall, the nanny looking suspicious and protective. and a royal guard exhibiting obvious physical distress. William's expression shifted from relief at finding Louis to concern about what situation his son had stumbled into. He asked calmly what was happening, directing the question to all three people present, but focusing primarily on Robert, whose trembling and pale complexion suggested he was at the center of whatever was occurring. Louis, with the directness children possess, immediately told his father about the hidden door and how the guard was shaking and wouldn't explain what was inside. William's eyes narrowed as he looked at the wall section Louis indicated, then at Robert, then back at the wall. He asked Robert directly if there was a concealed door in this corridor, and if so, what it led to. The question was delivered in the tone William used when he expected immediate and truthful answers, the voice of someone who had authority and knew it. Robert understood that his moment of decision had arrived. He could continue following Camilla's orders to maintain absolute secrecy, which would mean lying directly to Prince William and potentially facing severe consequences for that lie. Or he could tell the truth and face Camilla's wrath for revealing the room's existence. Either choice carried significant professional and personal risks. The trembling that had started as nervousness had evolved into something approaching panic, as Robert realized that whatever he decided in the next few seconds would likely define the rest of his career and possibly expose him to serious repercussions. Second part, Probert. Walsh made his decision in that moment of excruciating pressure, choosing duty to the crown over loyalty to the specific instructions he had received from Queen Camilla. His voice shaking as badly as his hands, he acknowledged to Prince William that yes, there was a concealed door in the wall paneling. He explained that Queen Camilla had given him explicit orders to guard this entrance, and to prevent anyone from entering or even knowing about the room's existence. William's expression darkened as he processed this information, his jaw tightening in a way that those who knew him recognized as barely controlled anger. The prince asked Robert how long he had been guarding this hidden room, and what he knew about what was inside. The guard admitted he had been assigned to this post for approximately 6 months, working rotating shifts with 2 other security officers, who had received similar instructions about maintaining absolute secrecy. As for the room's contents, Robert claimed he didn't know specifically. He had never been inside, and Camilla had never discussed with him what the space contained, or why it required such stringent protection. His role had simply been to ensure no one approached or discovered the concealed entrance. William instructed Sarah to take Louis back to the main areas of the house and to say nothing about what had occurred in this corridor. The nanny complied immediately, taking Louis's hand and leading him away despite the boy's protests that he wanted to see what was in the secret room. William waited until they had descended the stairs and were out of earshot, before turning his full attention back to Robert and the hidden door. The prince's expression had shifted from anger to something harder and more calculating, the look of someone preparing to uncover something he suspected would be deeply problematic: the future. King asked Robert if he had a key or access code for the concealed door. The guard admitted that no, he did not have access himself. Only Queen Camilla, and possibly one other person she trusted, held the means to open the room. William considered this information, then pulled out his phone and made a call to the head of security for the royal household. In terse language, he explained that a concealed room had been discovered at Clarence House, that it was apparently maintained by Queen Camilla in secret, and that he needed a technical team there, immediately to gain access to the space and determine what it contained. The security chief who received William's call understood immediately that this was a serious situation requiring urgent response. Within 20 minutes, a team of 3 security specialists arrived at Clarence House with equipment designed to bypass locks and access control systems. William had remained in the corridor with Robert during this waiting period, asking detailed questions about Camilla's instructions, about when she typically accessed the room, and about whether Robert had ever heard or seen anything that might provide clues about the room's purpose. The guard's answers revealed that Camilla usually visited the room late at night or very early in the morning, times when few people were present in this section of the building. The technical team began working on the concealed door, first confirming its exact location and size, then analyzing the locking mechanism. They discovered it was secured by both a traditional key lock and an electronic access control system, suggesting whatever was inside warranted serious security measures. William authorized them to use whatever means necessary to gain entry, including destructive methods if required. The urgency in his voice made clear. This wasn't a request, but a command that needed to be executed immediately. As the team worked, other members of the royal family became aware that something unusual was happening. King Charles had noticed William's absence from the birthday gathering and sent staff to locate him. When informed that the prince was in a restricted corridor dealing with a security matter, Charles excused himself from his guests and made his way to the second floor. His arrival in the corridor created a new complication, as William now had to explain to his father what he had discovered and why he was ordering security teams to break into a room that apparently belonged to Charles's. Wife Charles listened with visible confusion as William described how Louis had stumbled upon the hidden entrance and how Robert had been guarding it under Camilla's secret instructions. The king's first response was skeptical, suggesting there must be some misunderstanding or innocent explanation. Perhaps it was simply storage space for personal items that Camilla preferred to keep private. William countered that if the space was innocuous, there would be no reason for such elaborate secrecy. 4 guards sworn to deny the room's existence, or for the sophisticated security measures they had discovered protecting the entrance. The technical team announced they had successfully bypassed the locking mechanisms and could now open the concealed door. William instructed them to proceed, while Charles stood beside his son, looking increasingly apprehensive about what they might find. The panel swung inward, revealing a doorway that led to a room approximately 15 feet square, windowless and illuminated by overhead lighting that activated automatically when the door opened. What they saw inside made both William and Charles freeze in shock. The room was set up as a combination office and archive, with filing cabinets lining one wall, a desk with a computer and printer, and shelves containing numerous binders, folders, and boxes meticulously labeled and organized. But it wasn't the furniture that caused their stunned reaction. It was the content visible, even from the doorway. The walls were covered with photographs, newspaper clippings, and printed articles, all connected by strings and notes in what appeared to be some kind of investigation board like you might see in a crime drama. The photos were of various members of the royal family, and the articles dealt with royal scandals, controversies, and negative press coverage spanning decades. William entered the room first, with Charles following close behind and the security team waiting at the entrance. The prince began examining the materials on the walls, quickly realizing they represented a comprehensive archive of negative information about the royal family. There were photos of Prince Andrew from his scandal period, articles about Harry and Meghan's departure from royal duties, old clippings about Diana's troubles, and extensive materials about William himself, including unflattering photos and critical commentary from various media sources. Each item was annotated with handwritten notes in what appeared to be Camilla's distinctive writing. Charles moved to the desk and began opening drawers, finding them filled with additional files and documents. One drawer contained what appeared to be contact information for various journalists and media personalities, with notes about their areas of interest and their willingness to publish controversial royal stories. Another drawer held financial records showing payments to several individuals whose names Charles didn't recognize but whose activities were described in accompanying notes as information gathering or media placement. The king's face went pale as the implications of what he was seeing registered. William discovered a filing cabinet dedicated entirely to what appeared to be dirt-digging research on him and Catherine. There were files containing private information about their friends, their staff members, their daily schedules, and even details about their children's activities and education. Some files contained information that was clearly obtained through surveillance or through people who had violated confidentiality agreements. The level of detail was disturbing, suggesting Camilla had been conducting systematic intelligence, gathering operations against William's household for an extended period. One binder on the shelf caught William's attention because it was labeled with Diana's name. He opened it to find it stuffed with materials related to his late mother, including some original documents that appeared to have been taken from royal archives or from Diana's personal effects. The binder contained letters, personal notes, and photographs that had never been made public. William's hands shook as he realized Camilla had been hoarding materials related to Diana, possibly for decades, collecting anything that might be useful or valuable or damaging depending on circumstances. Charles found a laptop computer on the desk and opened it, discovering it wasn't password protected. Computer's files revealed even more troubling information. There were drafts of articles and op-eds, apparently ghost-written by Camilla, but intended to be published under other people's names, all pushing narratives favorable to her while being critical of other royals. There were email correspondences with media contacts discussing story placement and narrative control. There were spreadsheets tracking media coverage and analyzing public opinion trends. It was evidence of a sophisticated and long-running campaign to manipulate press coverage and public perception. William asked the security team to document everything in the room with photographs and video before anything was disturbed. He wanted comprehensive evidence of what Camilla had been doing, evidence that would be impossible to dispute or explain away. The team began methodically recording the room's contents while William and Charles continued their shocked examination of what they were finding. Every new discovery seemed worse than the last, revealing layers of deception, manipulation, and betrayal that neither had imagined possible, even from someone they knew, had a complicated relationship with truth and loyalty. Robert Walsh, still standing in the corridor, could hear fragments of the conversation happening inside the hidden room. He heard William's angry exclamations, Charles's bewildered questions, the clinical observations of the security team as they documented evidence. The guard realized that his decision to reveal the room's existence had unleashed something much bigger than he had understood. This wasn't just about Camilla keeping a private office. It was about exposure of activities that sounded criminal, or at minimum, profoundly unethical. Inside the room, William discovered perhaps the most disturbing element of Camilla's hidden archive. In a locked drawer that the security team helped him open, he found what appeared to be blackmail materials, dossiers on various individuals, containing compromising information, photographs, and communications that could be used to coerce or manipulate. Some of these dossiers targeted royal staff members. Others focused on journalists or public figures, and several contained information about government officials who interacted with the royal family. The purpose was clear. Camilla had been accumulating leverage over people she thought might be useful or might pose threats. Charles sat down heavily in the desk chair, looking overwhelmed by the scope of what was being revealed. He asked William in a hollow voice what they should do with all of this. How to handle a discovery that revealed his wife had been operating what amounted to a personal intelligence and propaganda operation from within the royal household. William's response was immediate and forceful. Everything in this room was evidence of serious misconduct, possibly criminal activity, and it needed to be treated as such. They would need to involve legal experts, security officials, and quite possibly law enforcement, depending on what further investigation revealed. The prince pulled out his phone again and began making a series of calls. He contacted the palace's senior legal advisor and requested immediate attendance at Clarence House. He called the head of MI5, Britain's security service, and requested a confidential meeting to discuss a matter involving potential security breaches within the royal household. He contacted his own private secretary and instructed her to clear his schedule for the next 48 hours because he would be dealing with a family emergency. Each call was brief and professional, but the underlying message was clear. Something serious had happened that required institutional response. Third part, the birthday celebration downstairs had been quietly concluded with explanations that an unexpected matter required King Charles and Prince William's immediate attention. Catherine had taken the children home to Kensington Palace, while other guests departed without knowing the crisis unfolding in the concealed room above them. Queen Camilla herself had been at a charity event across London during this discovery, completely unaware that her secret operation had been exposed. Palace staff had been instructed to inform her upon her return that the king requested her presence. In his private study immediately, a summons deliberately vague to avoid tipping her off about what had been found. William and Charles spent the next several hours with legal advisors and security officials, methodically cataloging the contents of Camilla's hidden room. Forensic specialists examined the computer, creating complete copies of the hard drive for analysis. The filing cabinets were emptied with each document photographed and logged. The investigation board covering the walls was documented from multiple angles before anything was removed. Every step was taken to preserve evidence in a form that could be used in legal proceedings if circumstances required prosecution. The more they uncovered, the more disturbing the picture became. One set of files revealed that Camilla had been paying several royal household staff members for information about other family members' activities and conversations. These payments were disguised as gifts or bonuses for services rendered, but the accompanying notes made clear they were compensation for intelligence gathering. The staff members involved would need to be identified and questioned, and would likely face termination and possible prosecution depending on what they had provided and whether they had violated official secrets or way for confidentiality agreements. Another discovery that particularly troubled the investigators was evidence that Camilla had been cultivating relationships with hackers and private investigators who specialized in obtaining information through illegal means. Email correspondence showed her requesting phone records, private communications, and surveillance of specific individuals. While it wasn't entirely clear whether these requests had been fulfilled, the mere fact of making them constituted conspiracy to commit crimes including wiretapping, computer intrusion, and violation of privacy laws. The legal implications were serious enough that the attorneys advised criminal prosecution was not just possible, but likely necessary. The MI5 representative who arrived to assess security implications was especially concerned about materials relating to government officials and classified information. Some of Camilla's files contained details about security protocols, information about government policy discussions involving royal family members, and intelligence about diplomatic matters that should have been strictly protected. If this information had been shared with unauthorized parties, particularly foreign interests, it could constitute espionage or breaches of official secrets that would require investigation at the highest levels of government. The security officer indicated that the Prime Minister would need to be briefed immediately. As evening approached, Queen Camilla returned to Clarence House and was escorted to Charles's private study as requested. She entered with an expression of mild curiosity, clearly expecting some routine family matter that required discussion. Her demeanor changed instantly when she saw not just Charles but also William, along with several stern-faced legal and security officials she didn't recognize. The setup of the room, with her facing what amounted to a panel of investigators, made clear this was not a casual family conversation, but something far more serious. Charles began by asking Camilla directly about the concealed room on the second floor. The color drained from her face, confirming she knew exactly what he was referencing, even though the question could theoretically have been about any hidden space. Her first response was to deny having any idea what he was talking about, claiming ignorance of any secret rooms in Clarence House. This obvious lie lasted only until William placed photographs of the room's interior on the table in front of her, showing the investigation boards, the filing systems, and her own handwriting on numerous documents and notes visible in the images. Fourth part, the public statement about Queen Camilla's misconduct and separation from royal duties was released 3 days after Prince Louis's accidental discovery of the hidden room. The reaction was immediate and intense, with media outlets worldwide covering the scandal as a major story. Initial public response was complex, mixing shock at the scale of Camilla's wrongdoing with a sense of vindication among those who had never accepted her as queen consort. The carefully worded statement raised more questions than it answered, prompting extensive speculation about what specifically Camilla had done and what information her unauthorized collection had contained. Behind the scenes, investigations continued at an accelerating pace. MI5 conducted interviews with every staff member whose name had appeared in Camilla's files as a paid informant. Several were immediately terminated and faced potential prosecution for breaching confidentiality agreements and, in some cases, for stealing documents or information. Others cooperated fully with investigators in exchange for more lenient treatment, providing detailed accounts of what information they had provided to Camilla and how much they had been paid. The pattern that emerged was of a systematic intelligence operation that had been running for years, far longer than the 6 months Robert Walsh had been guarding the hidden room, the computer forensics team, analyzing Camilla's laptop and cloud storage, accounts uncovered evidence that proved, even more damaging than what had been found in the physical room, deleted files recovered through technical means, showed that Camilla had been selling information to tabloid publications, receiving payments through intermediaries that disguised the transactions as consulting fees or speaking engagements. Financial records traced hundreds of thousands of pounds flowing to accounts she controlled, all related to providing information about royal family activities, private conversations, and sensitive family matters. The commercial exploitation of her position went far beyond anything that could be characterized as defensive intelligence gathering, perhaps. Most disturbing were communications showing Camilla had maintained contact with several individuals known to foreign intelligence services. While there was no clear evidence she had deliberately engaged in espionage on behalf of hostile nations, her careless handling of sensitive information and her willingness to discuss classified matters with questionable contacts created serious security concerns. The assessment from intelligence officials was that even if her intentions hadn't been treasonous, her actions had created vulnerabilities that foreign services could have exploited. Several diplomatic protocols had to be revised based on the assumption that information shared with the royal family might have been compromised through Camilla's activities. King Charles experienced a very public emotional breakdown during a scheduled appearance. At a military ceremony 2 weeks after the scandal broke, he appeared to lose his composure while giving remarks, pausing mid-sentence and standing silently at the podium for what felt like an eternity to those present. When he finally continued speaking, his voice was hoarse with emotion, and he cut his prepared remarks short, leaving the ceremony abruptly. The incident was captured by television cameras and became a viral moment, humanizing Charles's suffering while also raising concerns about his ability to continue functioning effectively as monarch. While dealing with such personal devastation, William took on increasing responsibilities as his father struggled with the dual crisis of personal betrayal and institutional scandal. The prince met with government officials to discuss the security implications of Camilla's activities, worked with legal teams to ensure her settlement agreement was properly enforced, and handled media strategy to manage the continuing flow of revelations about what the hidden room had contained. His leadership during this crisis enhanced his public stature, with polls showing increased confidence in William as the future king, while sympathy for Charles grew. Alongside concerns about his current capacity, the investigation into Camilla's paid informants led to discoveries about how deeply she had compromised royal household security. One particularly troubling case involved a senior household official who had been providing Camilla with detailed intelligence about William and Catherine's private schedule, their security arrangements, and even information about their children's movements and activities. This official's cooperation with Camilla had created serious vulnerabilities that could have been exploited by individuals with harmful intent. The official was arrested and charged with offenses related to compromising the security of protected persons. Facing significant prison time, Catherine dealt with her own trauma from discovering how extensively her family's privacy had been violated. Learning that Camilla had maintained detailed files on her children's activities, their friends, their school routines, and even transcripts of conversations they had been reported as having, was deeply disturbing. Catherine insisted on speaking directly with every staff member who had been identified as providing information to Camilla, wanting to understand how people she had trusted could have betrayed her family so completely. Some of these confrontations were emotional and difficult, revealing complex motivations, ranging from financial desperation to simple greed. The blackmail dossiers found in Camilla's hidden room created their own set of problems requiring resolution. Many of the individuals targeted by her information gathering needed to be informed that compromising information about them had been collected, both as a matter of fairness and to prevent future exploitation. These notifications led to a wave of additional complaints and potential legal actions, with some victims wanting to pursue civil suits against Camilla for invasion of privacy and related torts. The palace legal team worked to negotiate settlements with these individuals, offering compensation and support in exchange for agreements not to pursue public litigation. Robert Walsh. The guard whose trembling had signaled something was seriously wrong found himself in an unexpected position. His decision to reveal the hidden room's existence to Prince William had been the right call. But it had also ended his career in royal protection. He had directly violated orders from Queen Camilla, and while those orders had been given to conceal wrongdoing, the fact remained that he had broken protocol. William ensured that Robert faced no punishment and received full pension benefits, recognizing that the guard had made a difficult but correct choice under impossible circumstances. However, Robert chose to resign from royal service. Feeling he could no longer serve effectively after being at the center of such a significant scandal, Prince Louis, whose innocent curiosity had triggered the discovery, was shielded from understanding the full implications of what his wandering had uncovered. William and Catherine explained to their son in age-appropriate terms that he had accidentally found something that helped the family discover a problem that needed to be fixed. They praised him for being observant and asking good questions, while carefully avoiding details that would burden him with guilt or fear. The young prince seemed satisfied with this explanation and moved on with the resilience typical of children. Though his parents recognized he would eventually learn the full story as he grew older, the settlement agreement with Camilla was finalized after weeks of negotiation over specific terms and conditions. She would retain the title Queen Camilla legally, as removing that would require complex legal proceedings, but would never use it publicly or in any official capacity. She received a lump sum financial settlement and a modest annual allowance, both significantly below what she would have received as an active queen consort. She was permanently banned from all royal properties, prohibited from attending any royal events, and required to live at least 100 miles from London. Most importantly, she faced severe financial penalties and potential prosecution if she ever violated the non-disclosure agreements by speaking publicly about the royal family or her experiences. Criminal charges were ultimately filed against Camilla for several offenses related to her intelligence operation. The Crown Prosecution Service determined that despite the complications of prosecuting a former queen consort, the evidence was too strong and the offenses too serious to handle purely through private settlement. She was charged with conspiracy to intercept communications, conspiracy to commit computer misuse offenses, and offenses under the Official Secrets Act related to improper handling of classified information. Her attorneys negotiated a plea agreement, where she pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a suspended prison sentence and substantial community service requirements. The trial, conducted with significant privacy restrictions to protect classified information and innocent parties, nevertheless became a major news story. Testimony revealed the full scope of Camilla's operation, the number of people she had corrupted, the amount of money she had earned from selling information, and the security vulnerabilities she had created. Public reaction was overwhelmingly negative, with approval ratings for the monarchy dropping to historic lows as people processed how someone at the very center of the institution had been systematically exploiting and betraying it for years. King Charles announced 6 months after the scandal broke that he was considering abdication, feeling he had lost moral authority to continue as monarch. After having so badly misjudged the character of the person he elevated to queen consort, this announcement triggered constitutional discussions about succession procedures and whether William was prepared to assume the throne earlier than expected. William publicly urged his father not to abdicate, arguing that Charles's victimization by Camilla didn't diminish his capacity to serve, and that the monarchy would be better served by continuity than by a crisis succession. The hidden room at Clarence House was completely cleared and renovated, transformed into ordinary office space to erase any trace of what it had contained. The building itself became much less used by the royal family, with too many negative associations now attached to it. Charles essentially abandoned Clarence House, preferring to spend time at other residences where he didn't have to confront reminders of his failed marriage and his wife's betrayal. Years would pass before the full story of what had been discovered in Camilla's secret room became public through authorized books and documentaries. When it did emerge, the details shocked even people who thought they understood the scope of the scandal. The systematic nature of her intelligence operation, the number of people she had corrupted, the amount of money she had made, and the security vulnerabilities she had created all proved worse than initial reports had suggested. The story became a case study in how unchecked ambition, insecurity, and moral compromise could lead someone to catastrophically destructive choices. Prince William implemented comprehensive security reforms across all royal households, establishing new protocols for access control, information handling, and staff vetting. He created an independent oversight office with authority to investigate potential security breaches or misconduct by royal family members themselves, ensuring that future Camillas would face scrutiny regardless of their position. These reforms were controversial among traditionalists, who felt the monarchy shouldn't subject itself to such oversight. But William insisted they were necessary to restore public confidence and prevent similar scandals. For Catherine and William's children, the incident became part of their family history. A cautionary tale about trust, security, and the importance of questioning when something seems wrong. Louis would eventually learn that his childhood curiosity had triggered one of the most significant royal scandals in modern history, though his parents emphasized he should feel proud rather than guilty about that outcome. The experience shaped how William and Catherine approached their children's understanding of royal life, teaching them that position and title didn't exempt anyone from accountability for their actions. The trembling guard, Robert Walsh, found new employment in private security, carrying with him the knowledge that his moment of moral courage had been the right choice, even though it had been terrifying at the time. He occasionally gave confidential interviews to researchers studying the scandal, always emphasizing that he had simply done what his duty to the crown required when conflicting orders forced him to choose. His physical trembling in that corridor, the visible manifestation of impossible pressure, had signaled to Prince William that something was seriously wrong, making Robert's fear an inadvertent warning that helped expose a conspiracy threatening the monarchy's integrity and security.